can the electric car get from Bratislava to Banska Bystrica?
Yeah.
Can it? 'Cause isn't it limited by the number of
Yeah.
miles that it can do, or kilometers or something?
And
It
when
can it get from
I
Bratislava to
think
Bys?
that yes, it's not so long way, long distance.
I
So
would I would check that data and that information because I think that's on the limit of what an electric car could do.
yeah, it's limited.
Yeah, it's very limited by the distance it can travel. It's okay if you're driving around the city, but you can't really take it any. You can't really take it out of the city because you can't really go anywhere, and it then takes. If you want to charge it, it takes I don't know 3, 6, 8, 12 hours to charge it.
Mm.
It takes 3 hours to charge a smaller car, so I'd.
It's not so useful, but but it's good to see that you can
Yeah, it's
charge the car.
yeah, it's about the practicality of it. I mean, at the moment, the batteries just can't hold enough energy for the car to travel long distances. I mean, I was watching uh, and well, I don't know the film, a series, a program. I was watching a program about um, cars a few months ago, and they were testing a new electric car, and they took it out of the city, and they couldn't go anywhere because, first of all, there was nowhere to charge the car. Second of all, where there was a place to charge a car, half the chargers were not working. Third of all, when you had to charge the car, you had to wait 3 to 4 hours for it to charge, and then they still couldn't get where they wanted to go because it was too far. And that was in Britain. And Britain is not very big. So, uh, uh, yeah, I mean, all the technology is if you're driving around the city, it's fantastic. Um, but if somebody calls you and says, "Hey, I need you to come pick me up from the airport or whatever," you say, "I'm sorry, I'm charging my car." Right?
But from Banska Bystrica to Bratislava is not so long by car.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the limit of the car. I mean, you could probably drive from Bratislava to Bystrica, but then you couldn't drive back.
Mm.
Yeah, I've got a one of my clients is the director of Slovak company. He's the owner of the company actually. It's a big electrical company
Mm.
that provides energy to different parts of Slovakia. And he lives in Bystrica, but does most of his work in Bratislava, like most people, right? And he has an electric car, and he can't take it out of Bystrica because he can't go anywhere with it. He's got a petrol-driven car for getting to work, right, to getting to Bratislava and back. But he has an electric car, but he cannot take the car out of Bystrica because he can't get anywhere. It's nice, but I think the purpose of a car is to go somewhere. And if you're designing a new car and it can't go as far as the old car, can you really call that progress? No, no, you're right. Absolutely right. You can't. You can't. Yeah. Um, you can't really call that progress. You can look at all the other areas of technology where there's progress, and you can say, oh, there's progress in all these areas of technology, but the whole point of a car is to travel somewhere. So, the future is going to be very interesting because if we all get electric cars, which are sold on the basis of its clean energy, there isn't any such thing as clean energy, really. There's renewable energy, but not clean energy. Renewable energy is basically only solar, wind. Wind is useless. You can't power anything with wind. Um, solar and water power create renewable energy. Um, but and coal is generally clean now, but there's a big push for all this electrical energy to make everything cleaner and greener, um, which is just based on the principle that we are going to use nuclear power, which is called clean. Nuclear power is called clean energy, just because you can't see the pollution, because radiation is invisible. Just because you can't see the pollution doesn't mean that it's clean. Um, don't know about you, but I wouldn't like to see more nuclear power stations everywhere, as all we have are old nuclear power stations which were designed to last for 20 or 30 years, and they're now, it's like 40 years ago we built the nuclear power stations. Yes, but they were only for 20 or 30 years. Don't worry. Okay. Okay. uh, uh, Interesting. Don't get me wrong, I like the Tesla car myself, right? It's comfortable and it has everything that you could want from a car. Except you can't really go anywhere. There is one future possibility that's really that gives hope to it, and that's the remote charging technology, which is at the moment, if you have a mobile phone, you have to plug it in somewhere to charge it, right? Well, that's changing now. You can now charge it remotely. You can have a device in your home and it will send energy into your phone. You don't have to plug it in. So it's called remote charging. It sends energy into your phone and charges your phone. If you can do that with a phone in a small area, you can theoretically do it with a car as well. But we may be talking 50 to 100 years in the future with that kind of technology. But it's interesting. I don't know what kind of damage that would do to the environment, just sending energy all over the place. It's probably not good for the human brain. Don't know. We will see. The future is here. But we have to solve a lot of ridiculous problems in the present first. You know, if see, I know a little bit about this subject. If you look back at the history of the car, cars were actually more economical in the 1960s than they are today. We haven't improved fuel efficiency in cars. I mean, this is crazy. There was a car built in the 1960s called the Dymaxicon, I think it was called. It was built by a man called Buckminster Fuller, who was a scientist and engineer. And it was bigger, faster, safer, and more economical than any other car. But nobody wanted to build it. And cheaper to build, but nobody wanted to build it. And this was basically because car companies make lots of money from cars breaking down. And energy companies make lots of money from cars using lots of energy. And they didn't want to make it better because they would lose their profits. Sad but true. The first electrical car was 2001. It was the General Motors EV1 that was sold in California. In fact, it wasn't actually sold, it was only rented. You couldn't buy any of the cars, you could only rent them. And so many people wanted to rent them that they ran out of cars to rent. They couldn't rent any more. All the cars were rented. All the cars, they were so popular. And then General Motors took all the cars and crushed them and destroyed them all. Why? I don't know. I don't know why they did it. It's a strange thing to do, though. It destroyed all the cars so that they tried to erase all record of the car ever even existing. But we still have records because I think there were 3 people that didn't return their cars and hid the cars. And of course there are a couple of videos as well of people driving the cars that still exist, which is interesting. In the year 1900, there were more electrical cars on the road than petrol cars. What are all those young men going to do when they can't sit in the car and go, which is, human ego.